Alright, now this movie, I'm so glad this movie was made. And it's even better the second time you watch it. It's the sequel to The Hustler from 1986, The Color of Money, made about 25 years after the original. Martin Scorsese decided to direct this film. And Paul Newman won an Academy Award, if I'm not mistaken, for his performance of reprising his role as Fast Eddie Felson. It's about, I could only imagine what this generation was like, or how pool halls used to be back in the day. It really gives you, it's about a pool hustler who gets a new young protege, hot shot, played by Tom Cruise, who used to get every role back then. Nowadays, if they did it, it would be like Shia LaBeouf getting this role or something. Anyway, he's a cocky, young upstart. In the opening scene, he's playing an arcade and also beating John Turturro's character. And he ends up beating him out of money, and he's like, "Oh, let's play." He's like, "Let's play." And he walks away, and Eddie Felson ends up hearing his break, and it's got a thud. It's like the baseball players say, like, the ball just comes off the bat different. His bat different, like Carlos Quentin or something. And he saw a little bit of himself in him, so he takes him on the road. This is a sports movie where it's just an adventure. This is like one of the best sports films that's ever made. Like, baseball films, hockey, NFL definitely. They all just feel fake and set up, and just not authentic. But they have actual pros of the time. And I'm not an expert on pool. I don't shoot 9-ball. But the billiards in this was amazing. And the adventure of the road trip. Once they start the road trip, you just get the excitement of it all. It feels like you're going on the road with them. And Fast Eddie Felson, he basically tries to teach him the art of the hustle. And he ends up being cocky, and swinging around his pool stick like a samurai sword. And the first pool hall that they hit it got turned into a furniture store. And when they're walking up the stairs, like, Eddie Felson was like, "I got goosebumps." And then they walk up there and it's completely full of furniture. And then there's the great line where they meet the one owner of the guy he knew in the past, and he's like, "This is Fast Eddie Felson. Who are you, the end of the world?" Oh, it's so well written from top to bottom. I know the guy who wrote the book died like shortly after the book came. The first film was based on the book. In the second film, he wrote it in 1984, and he died shortly after that came out. And he also wrote a treatment or a draft of a screenplay for this, which they turned down and wrote a different screenplay. But the one they ended up using was amazing. I mean, all the lines, all the confrontations between the old school and new school, the generation of coke and speed versus booze of back in the day. They just did, every line was just polished off fine. It gets better with a second viewing. And so anyway, Fast Eddie Felson ended up getting pissed off at him, and that he ends up telling him he's got too much balls and not enough brains. And they end up ending the biggest tournament in the nation at Atlantic City for the ending. And no, wait, Fast Eddie ends up ditching him, and he ends up getting glasses, like, to improve his game. And that's what improves his game, and he works and harnesses his game after he ends up getting humiliated and hustled by a young Forrest Whitaker in this. So it gets time to the tourney, and Tom Cruise ends up throwing the match for a huge pay cut. But Fast Eddie didn't know anything about this. You're waiting for the matchup of Tom Cruise, young gun versus old school. You finally get it in the tournament. And it's like in the semifinals, and we find out after it that he threw the match, and he's like, Oh well, good luck with Kennedy though. And Tom Cruise plays it perfect. Is the cocky young guy with the arrogant attitude. It's just God. The lines are just beautiful. So he ends up forfeiting the match, and Fast Eddie is embarrassed again. So he hands back the money because he's pissed off, and he's like, "I just want his best game." And you're like, "All right, finally, this is what we've been waiting for: the matchup of Tom Cruise, the real matchup, not the tournament one, the one-on-one in the smoked-out pool hall." And they end up doing freeze frame for the ending. I get so pissed. I go up. I'm like, alright, it's the ending, and they're finally going to face each other. And I'm like, so I take another shot, get my buzz just correctly for this ending. And what do we get? Freeze frame cliche 80s ending. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember this from the first time I watched it. How could I forget? So we don't even get to see who had really won. You know they would have wrote the script so that Fast Eddie would have won. But I guess it's an alright ending. I give it an A. Absolutely love this film. Obviously. So this was JBM 2K5. Click on the channel for more sports memorabilia videos, sports movie reviews, and baseball podcasts. I'm out. You could hate on me now. Or tell me your comments of how the pool halls used to be back in the 70s and 80s. I'd love to hear your pool hall stories, because this movie's just awesome. I'm sure back in that generation, before technology super took over, I'm sure it was huge. So tell me your stories. I'm out. Thanks.